Ghana's magistrates and judges say they are frustrated about government handling of their conditions of service. They are particularly concerned about the delays in the payment of the allowances, which they describe as sad. Speaking at the opening of the annual general meeting of the Association of Magistrates and Judges of Ghana Wednesday, its president, Justice Senyo Jamafer, said it has now become an annual battle to get the allowances paid.
Much as management has done its best in the years under review, we still have a lot of problems as judges. One, it's always the first every year, payment of allowances. Year in, year out, we have complained about this issue of non-payment of allowances or delays in doing so. Like we said in 2019, payment of allowances has become one of the biggest issues for the association. It is sad that judges in Ghana will have to fight every year for their legitimate allowances to be paid. It is sad, to say the least, that the leadership of the association has to personally trek to the Ministry of Finance, Controller and Accountant General Department, Auditor General Department to fight before allowances are paid, and it's true. We have to fall on friends at the seat of government to push for such allowances to be paid. As of September 2021, that is this month, we still have not received any fuel allowance for the year. Mr. Chairman, it is so frustrating, to say the least. Mr. Chairman, without mincing words, we are so frustrated. We feel disrespected about the way our allowances are paid, as if it's a favor being done us. For so many years now, we have never been paid, in quotes, any fuel allowance. It has always been a refund. As usual, we use our own money from our taxed salaries to purchase fuel. This is later refunded after so many months and then taxed as if it was paid upfront. In effect, we pay double taxes for fuel, taxed salaries and ex-pump taxes. The courts insist very much on timelines in litigation since they are creatures of statute. Yet, same is overlooked when it comes to payment of allowances to us. Book and roving allowances. I said in 2019 that the service to government has long forgotten about these allowances. The last book allowance was paid in 2019. Roving allowance for this year is still not paid. Roving is 5 years, so people qualify every year, but this year it's not paid.
The judges' bungalows at Ridge were demolished some months ago to make way for the construction of the National Cathedral, but they say the new residential facilities giving them is not safe enough. Other issues bordered on security of judges and vehicles for their work.
Accommodation. The service lost so many bungalows to the Cathedral project. However, it has acquired 21 townhouses at cantonments, and I'm happy to announce that a total of 21 justices of the Supreme and Court of Appeal have moved in to occupy same. Though they look very beautiful outside, they have some structural defects. The houses are directly on the flight path from the Kotoka International Airport. The force with which the heavy planes take off directly affect the houses. Aside the terrible noise created by the planes, the doors and other items shake when the heavy planes fly over. In fact, 2 days ago, one of my flower vases got broken. Because my house is the first, so I experienced the heaviest noise. Mr. Chairman, surprisingly, the contractor negligently failed to fix double glazed windows to curtail the noise. Every house in cantonments is double glazed, otherwise you can't contain the noise, but the contractor negligently failed to do this and used single glazed windows instead of double glazed. We asked management to see to it to save the lives of the occupants as well as the lifespan of the buildings. We also wish to mention the deplorable state of some court buildings in the country. One clear example is the state of the Cape Coast High Court complex. Personally, I met His Lordship the Chief Justice, and he has assured me that he is working on it. And I even asked some people in Cape Coast, and they said, yes, fire service. Who is from Cape Coast? The fire service was there to assess the damages, right? The service must act fast before the unexpected occurs. Security of judges. At the last AGM, we invited management to take measures to safeguard the security of judges, both in court and out of court. It is sad to repeat saying that as of today, we still do not have any CCTV cameras in the Supreme Court room, let alone the other courts, the courtrooms. We dare say management is taking the security of judges for granted. We have incidents of hooligans entering a court in session to snatch an accused standing trial. A stitch in time, they say, saves 9. Vehicles. Though it is part of service, especially for the professionals, some of them still do not have cars, or at best using old rickety cars. I have been informed by His Lordship the Chief Justice about tenders for new vehicles, but we cannot tell when they will be delivered. I am aware vehicles will come, but when, we cannot tell. I pray this is done early for all members to have cars to work with. The Judicial Council once took a decision to supply pickups to career magistrates who work, in quote, at hard-to-reach areas, unquote. This was during CJS of Akufo's time, yet they have still not been supplied. Mr. Chairman, the lower courts are the front desk of the judiciary. Every effort must be made to make them comfortable. They all deserve cars to work with. The bottom line is that we are all judges performing the same functions. Furniture. The neurosurgeons or chiropractors will tell you it is not advisable to use the same office chair for more than 3 years. The body gets adjusted to it for the good or wrong reasons, so it is advisable to change same very often. When we grow older, the spinal cord needs constant adjustments, else we suffer sciatica or other back pains. I have been using the same swivel chair in my chamber for the past 11 years, until I bought a new one this year based on my doctor's advice. I know for a fact that a lot of members have been using the same furniture for years. When these chairs are changed to suit our postures, the service derives enormous benefits. The judge is more productive, healthier, and therefore the medical bills of the service reduces.
Chief Justice Christian Inyebwa acknowledged the constraints they faced, but challenged them to do their best to win the trust of the public.
We have serious constraints as an institution. In a population of over 30 million, we have less than 404 judges and magistrates administering justice in a litigious society like Ghana. The cause of justice may not easily be accessible to the poor or the legally aided litigant, who may equally not qualify for legal aid. However, we have to do our best within the limited logistic constraints to serve the justice needs of our compatriots. For example, from Central Accra, that is Ejabin, to Nsawam, there is not a single court on that stretch until Amasamai. And this should not happen in any civilized country. The same situation is true for Kumasi. From Kumasi Central to Obuasi, there is no court on the way, and that is a distance of about 36 miles. Nevertheless, we still have to adjust to these constraints and hope that the state will apply a bit more resources to provide court infrastructure to support justice delivery in Ghana. Permit me to applaud government and members of parliament at this juncture for the construction of some new courts under the Disassembly Common Fund project. The judiciary is now to receive over 100 courts throughout the country within the next year. The judiciary is also grateful to the administrator of the Disassembly Common Fund in this regard. I wish to urge you, as part of measures to improve upon our justice delivery, to advise litigants in appropriate cases to resort to ADR in cases which ADR is appropriate, to lessen the burden which is imposed on us. We have to also avoid unnecessary adjournments that are not sought on legitimate grounds. You should avoid adjourning rulings and judgments, as these cause delays in bringing finality to cases when very short adjournments could dispose of the matter. Accumulating of several part-heard cases should also be avoided. I felt ashamed as Chief Justice when a judge who has been promoted from the magistrate court to the circuit court had accumulated 120 part-heard cases. We have wide discretionary powers vested in us as judges, but these should not be abused, as it will lead to injustice. We must therefore be guided by our judicial oath, which reads in part, truly and faithfully perform the functions of my office without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and that I will at all times uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the Republic of Ghana, so help me God. Be reminded that the office of a judge or magistrate is not a public one, which opens one's conduct to the public interest and scrutiny. To occupy the office of a judge or magistrate makes you fortunate, and you are obliged to leave it unblemished when the time comes to lay it down. Furthermore, the Code of Conduct for Judges and Magistrates, which has recently revised, has assembled time-tested principles for ensuring appropriate social behavior for effectively discharging the sacred responsibilities of judgeship in contemporary Ghanaian society. Maintaining the prestige of judicial office is essential to a system of government in which the judiciary functions independently of the executive and legislative branches. I would therefore urge us, judges and magistrates, as provided in the Code of Conduct, to distinguish between proper and improper use of prestige of office in all our activities and avoid all impropriety and the appearance of it in both professional and personal conduct.
Right, so joining us for more on this is Chairman of Parliament's Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, Kwame Anyimedu Entry. Also, we have Ato Kassil-Forsing, who is the ranking member on the Parliament's Finance Committee. But we'll start with the chairperson of the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee, Kwame Anyimedu Entry. Now, good morning to you and thank you for joining us. What in your view could be accounting for the poor handling of the allowances due the magistrates and judges?
I am surprised that this thing had come up. But the judges, that is the Superior Court of Judicature, they are part of the Article 71 office holders. But I learned that their allowances, some of them, I think it is fuel, and some other few allowances, those ones are deconsolidated. It is not part of it as the members of parliament. While our fuel is consolidated, we don't get a separate fuel. But the judges, the fuel is given to them separately. Normally, I think that somebody must be responsible over this, but I do not know where to point the fingers at. We should not be blaming everybody, or the blames must not be going on the government. I am a member of the NMC, National Media Commission, and allowances sometimes it's 6 months, over a year, and then the allowances are paid. So when it comes to salary, there are no problems in this country. But when it comes to allowances, then maybe somebody is dragging the feet somewhere, or maybe it's the responsibility of another person. But I know within the finance committee, you would have to put in the application, and then they would have to process it before it comes. Like we said, Ato would be a better place because he works with the finance committee. But I think the last person you spoke with, I didn't get the benefit of listening to him in full. We are talking about judges, which is a very dignified institution. He had advised, I had advised that because of the noble profession that they belong to, they should actually exercise restraint. So as now Parliament is on recess, so it's about the first time I'm hearing this, and I think I will work with my colleagues when we resume. Even we'll start working towards this and finding out where something had gone wrong. Then we all put our minds together and efforts together to make sure that this situation is rectified and rectified for good. Not only the judges and magistrates, but all other institutions that will be receiving allowances from government.
All right, so you indicate that you'd expect that whoever spoke would exercise some restraint. But Justice Jamefe, he was speaking at an event where the Chief Justice himself was there, and the Chief Justice actually urged them to, still continue to bear with the situation and work while the issues are being resolved. And he goes on to talk about the fact that it takes quite a while in trying to move from Jubilee House, from place to place, to try and convince whoever is in charge to get the monies paid to them. So it clearly shows that this is something that they've had to bear with for a long time. So ideally, they wouldn't be talking about it. As we know, the justices often don't come out to complain about these things. But to the extent that they're talking about it, it must be serious.
Yeah, well, what you're hearing from them is not that the allowances have not been paid at all. They are paid from time to time, but it delays. And I cited an example that with the National Media Commission, it happens like that. The allowances, by law, is supposed to be paid. It takes forever for it to be paid. And sometimes it's in arrears of 3 months or 6 months. So I can foresee what they are talking about. But for judges, no, let's go on demonstration on this or whatever. So I would plead with them that this matter having come up, they should leave it with some of us, we on the other side of the arm of government, the three arms of government. We would have to speak for them and come to their aid.
All right.
And I'm sure it will be ready.
Mr. Imeduentri, I'll come to you to get to understand exactly what you intend to do about it to get this resolved. But also joining us is a ranking member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Ato Kasil Forcing. And I must say that we have actually tried to reach the Finance Ministry to get them to get to understand what exactly is happening, but we have been unsuccessful, and that's why we're having to we will resort to the parliamentary committees. Now, good morning to you, Mr. Kasil Singh. Now, has this issue come to the attention of the committee?
I think yesterday I read about it, and honestly, it is not before the committee officially, but I've read about it, and let me say that I'm disturbed. I'm disturbed for a simple reason that we all know the important role the judiciary in particular plays in every organization. If we talk about compensation of employees, it's made up of salaries and allowances. So if government of the day decide to pay one leg of somebody's entitlement and fails to pay the other, it doesn't really sound good. But you see, the difficulty that we have here is that because the judiciary oftentimes find it difficult to speak for themselves, and oftentimes it's Parliament that speaks for them, they find it difficult to espouse this. And I'm happy that this matter has been brought up for us to discuss. And I believe that as a member of the Finance Committee, the Finance Committee will be interested in this matter going forward. This is particularly so because, in my opinion, if government is not paying the allowances that is due the judiciary in particular, it means government is accumulating arrests. But if you are to look in government budget statement, it does say that they are not accumulating any arrests on the back of compensation. So something is certainly missing out there. My problem is that we are where we are because of poor prioritization of government. In fact, I am tempted to conclude that Ghana is broke to the extent that we are using approximately 70% of total revenue to service interest and to pay for both interest and what you call the amortization, which is interest payment. Clearly, if you add wages and salaries, then it takes away the entire, what you call, the revenue base of the country. So oftentimes government is out there borrowing. And this is the same borrowings that has actually resulted in these very problems that we are in. I urge the government to ensure that things of this nature doesn't happen, because it demoralizes the judges, and we know what it means. If you have a justice system that is poorly paid and poorly remunerated, the repercussion on the economy will certainly be bad. And it's important that the government take this matter serious and fix it. It must be done now.
All right, so you make reference to the fact that if they are not being paid, then it means government is accumulating arrears. But as your colleague, Mr. Imedu Entry, indicated, it's not that they don't pay them at all, it tends just to delay.
It can't be, and it shouldn't be, because you have the Superior Court, which is part of Article 71, office holders. And I see no reason why their allowances should delay. It shouldn't delay at all.
So,
number two.
So Mr. Imedu Entry explains that their allowances are not consolidated as it is done with their salaries. So he says the salaries are prompt, except it's the allowances that tend to delay.
There are mechanisms in place both at the Ministry of Finance and the Controller and Accountant General's Department that ensures that these allowances are paid promptly. So I'm surprised that the government is not paying this promptly. Something is certainly wrong. It may be that government is broke and the money is not there, that is why they are finding it difficult to pay. Or it may be that government priority is wrong. They are using the money to pay for other things that they are not supposed to. And probably they are using what they are supposed to use in paying the judges is being used in paying others. I believe that this is something that we should interrogate. Because certainly, as I've said, failure to remunerate your judges appropriately will have a very negative impact on the economy. The running of the country, the business system, the justice system will rely on effective legal system. And if this legal system are defective because the judges are certainly not being paid properly, then obviously we are in for a problem. I think the government must handle this matter urgently. And I can assure you that I will discuss this with the chairman of the Finance Committee, and when we are to come back, hopefully by 19th of October, Parliament will sit on this matter and we will discuss it to ensure that the right thing is done for the judiciary, particularly the lower and then the Superior Court of Justice.
Now, Mr. Imedu Entry also indicates that he's interested in trying to get the issue resolved. Let me bring him in at this point. Mr. Imedu Entry, what exactly would you want to do, or what do you intend to do about it to resolve it?
Well, I think what Honorable was posing, from the approach that the lens that he's looking, with which he's looking at the problem, I don't agree entirely.
Well, he's saying that he also intends to, ensure that the issue is brought before the committee.
Yes, I mean, what he's saying is based on assumption. But he is a ranking member of the Finance Committee, and I'm a member of the Finance Committee, and I'm very happy that he said that we have to put our heads together. That's the most important thing, so that allowances are paid. It's not that it is not paid, but the process is that somebody would have to apply to the Ministry of Finance, which I am not aware of the process, and that's what we have to make sure that it doesn't reoccur, and that there is a certain way of going about it. Like Honorable Attoforson said, if it is added to the salary or consolidated, then this problem would not arise. And maybe we would have to actually look at it, if it is possible to actually consolidate those allowances as part of their salary, then these problems would not reoccur.
All right. Thank you to you both, but I'd want to end with you, Mr. Castle Atuforting. So you have been at the finance ministry before. Mr. Imeduentri is talking about the processes, and he believes that the processes that tend to delay the process. Are you aware of these processes that may be delaying this?
In fact, honestly, as I said, these are matters that are handled by the compensation department of the Ministry of Finance and the Control and Accountant General's Department. The Ministry of Finance has, under the budget division, a compensation unit, and that unit calculate allowances and salaries that are supposed to be paid, including pensions. And they interface strongly with the Control and Accountant General's Department. Their responsibility to ensure that some of these matters does not, as we are discussing, does not arises. Sadly, this is coming back. And obviously, if you see things like this coming up, there are fundamental problems. The problems may not be that someone somewhere has not processed it. The problems are certainly, and obviously, and I know, that is because the money is not there, and that is why they are not paying. It's not that somebody is failing to do his job. The government does not have the money to pay. And as I've said, salaries, excluding allowances, not compensation, salaries, excluding allowances, together with interest payment and debt repayment, almost swallows every tax revenue that the state has, every tax revenue. And this is because the government of the day has an insatiable appetite for borrowing. We are borrowing too much. So it's crowding out everything. And that's why we are paying interest, because when you borrow, you have to pay interest. So that may be the cause. I would wish you have invited the Ministry of Finance for them to tell us exactly what is happening. The country is broke. There's certainly no money. And that is why they are struggling to pay these allowances. I do not believe that someone somewhere is failing to process these allowances. The bottom line is that someone does not have the money to pay for these allowances. All right. And I'm saying it is dangerous. All right. So they should do their prioritization right and ensure that the judiciary in particular are taken very good care of because of the very important function they play in the society of Ghana.
All right, thank you very much, Castle Atuforting, who's the ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament, and he indicated that he would have wished that we had spoken with the Finance Ministry. My attention has been drawn to the fact we actually reached out to the Finance Ministry, and the Deputy Minister is indicating that the issue hasn't come to their attention, and so they cannot speak to it. But also, we also had joining us for the conversation was the Chairman of Parliament's Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, Kwame Imeduentri. Thank you to you both now.